What if I told you I never used to like stencils? But today I've got 10 very simple ways to use them, and you can make beautiful cards, fun cards, sentimental cards, encouraging cards, Christmas cards. Look at this one. Even some sympathy cards. And you can celebrate a milestone or two. All with stencils. Let's jump right into technique number 1. I have this stencil here, and I am using Ink on 3 invisible ink, or the one that you can use for no line coloring, basically just tone on tone. And I'm just stenciling this through just like you would for any regular old stencil. Nothing special, all one color. The reason I'm doing this is because my first technique is colored pencil, and I really like how color pencils look on craft cardstock, and I do really love the look of coloring your stencil. But this is a really good tip and or trick that I do in order to make sure that I get the pattern from the stencil and then I can color it. I just use a tone on tone ink, stencil over the top. I'm not going to show you this whole thing, but I did fill in a few of these, I guess, flowers. I'm coloring them like flowers. I filled in a few of them with some different blues. I wasn't sure what I was going to do for these cards yet, but I will say that I think that they all turned out really pretty. Just spoiler alert. I loved them. So here I just finished up this kind of flower mosaic kind of thing here with some colored pencils, and then I decided I wanted to add a little bit more color to these, so I am going back in. I'm not going to show you all of it, but I am going back in and adding a little bit more color to some of these, just a little bit of interest. They kind of reminded me of like stepping stones in a garden, and I just thought that that they were kind of beautiful and soft and graphic, and I just thought this would be beautiful as a sympathy card. So I'm just coloring a few of these, and that's what I did. So that's card 1. That is technique 1, and that is colored pencils. And you can see how that background does fade out, and over time it could fade a little bit more. It'll stay like a watermark. So for technique number 2, I have die cut a piece of masking paper with a star, and I am going to mask underneath my stencil. So I have placed this stencil over the top, and now I'm ink blending. I don't really need to go all the way into the center of the star, but I did. And because this star has like stitching around the edges, it does leave this cute little stitched line after I'm all the way done. But I'm just going through with some inks here, and I am stenciling with orange and then yellow, just using some soft blending brushes. These are like Amazon brushes. Use what you have. You don't need to buy anything special. These are inks that I just pulled out of my drawer. I've had them forever. So this one is the masking underneath the stencil. You don't get you get less of a harsh line than if you masked over top, I think, in my opinion. So this is the technique that I thought I would share. And here's the card. I just made a graduation card, and it looks like he's jumping off the page. So that is card number 2. Technique number 2 was masking under the stencil. Technique number 3 is stencil shifting. This stencil is super cool. It is like this bubble, like bubble strings almost, kind of at I don't know, kind of spins maybe, kind of feels like it spins. But if I just rotated this, it would line directly back up with the pattern. So when I do move it, I am going to shift it just slightly. Well, here I'm just making sure everything is beautifully colored, and I do this one completely in different shades of blue. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I'm all the way inked up, and then I'm going to lift the stencil and shift it just a little bit. See, if I shift it all the way, it lines up, but if I shift it just a little bit, about halfway, I get a totally different look. And now I'm going to use some metallic or shimmery ink to go ahead and add this next layer, and I'm just stenciling the whole thing. I just shifted it, so I'm going to get just a unique look. That's one thing I never used to like about stencils, is I used to think you had to stencil them exactly as they are, that you couldn't use them like a tool. Like what I'm doing here is I'm creating my own pattern with a stencil. So here I shifted it yet again, and now I'm using this white, well, really light blue ink. It's kind of a chalky finish ink, kind of similar to a pigment ink. Well, it is a pigment ink, kind of similar to the oxides, I guess, kind of that same chalky finish. And I am just stenciling everywhere that I have not stenciled, and it'll go over the other inks as well. But it's really light, and it just kind of knocks that white back so that everything is blue. So there is my card that I made with that, another graduation card, and it definitely looks like she is jumping for joy. I just think that one's super cool. So you can see that you can use your stencils not just as they're intended. You can turn them, roll them, you know, shift them. So this one here is going to be, instead of spinning your stencil, we're going to shift this stencil. Here I'm using some graphite black ink. It's a very juicy ink pad, and it's got a shimmer to it. I think it's a Memento. It's got a shimmer to it. So I'm using a domed blender tool here to just stencil my Christmas ornaments in black, because yeah. Then I'm going to clean my stencil, and I'm going to put it back down, and I'm going to shift it so that it doesn't quite line up. Kind of lines up, but not really. So I'm going to end up with kind of a shadow. And here I'm using, I think this is Lost Shadow Distress Oxide, which will show up over this ink. And I'm using another foam blending tool, and I am just kind of pouncing, but also kind of smearing it over the top. This is going to create dimension in the background. I just want to be, you know, background. But again, I could have just stenciled it and left it, but now I shifted it slightly, and I get this very cool design where you can, it almost looks like everything is three-dimensional. Here's a little bit of a close-up so you can see a little bit better. And I did just put some more ornaments over the top and a sentiment, and it looks like lots and lots of ornaments. Now, you don't even have to just ink blend. You can do all sorts of things. This is a like a felt tipped pen in brown, and I am just using it to outline all of these shapes. It doesn't have to be perfect, and this stencil's kind of got like jagged edges and stuff, so I thought it would be perfect for this technique. You don't have to ink blend, you don't have to paint, you don't have to color over. You can just outline them, and you can get a lot of really neat textures and techniques and backgrounds and from just this simple technique here. It is so cute and so simple, and I used a stamp set that I thought would make a perfect card for this from Inky Antics, and here it is. Isn't that very cool? Like the background just kind of disappears, but it's just really neat, simple. So that is the next technique. Here is an additional one. Like I said, you don't have to ink blend all the time. You don't have to, you know, color blend. You don't have to use inks. You don't have to use paints or pastes or any of that stuff. These are just simple gel pens. I have a selection of gel pens in all sorts of colors, and here I just have picked several, and I am coloring these in. I am not outlining, I'm just kind of coloring them in so that I get kind of not perfect impression, but definitely resembling what this video game would have looked like, you know, kind of pixelated. But again, here's another time where I did something different than just ink blending over the stencil. I used these gel pens, and I used them in all different colors, and I did make a very cool card with this using a technique called the Eclipse technique with my sentiment. But really all I'm doing is filling these in with gel pens. It's super simple, very cost effective. It doesn't really cost much, and you can get gel pens pretty much anywhere. Definitely Amazon, but a lot of the like big box stores or craft stores, they don't have to be anything super special, just gel pens. and I kind of picked a rainbow of colors. I definitely need to do some maintenance with my gel pens, but they worked enough for this. I just really enjoyed all the colors. I thought that they were very bright, and putting them on the craft cardstock definitely makes them have different hue, and they just look a little bit different, a little more fun and kind of juvenile, almost juvenile. So there we have gel pens on cardstock through a stencil, and I think this is a really cool stencil for this technique. I did make sure that I got the little spaceship and the little, I don't know if like little laser dots or whatever. I did color them in, made sure that I got them. So there is that, and this is the card that I made with that eclipse technique. Put some shiny blue behind there and just die cut the happy birthday to you, and then I inlaid them inside. For this technique, I am going to, well, this card is going to have two techniques in one. First of all, I'm going to emboss with the stencil. I used a squishy mat and emboss so you get the texture, and now I'm going to selective ink. So you can emboss with your stencils, you just need one of them little squishy mats. And then now I've just placed the stencil back over top, and now I'm going to selective ink. I'm using some pieces of, what is this stuff called? Post-it tape. I'm using some pieces of that to kind of mask off these different areas. And I am just going to pick some colors, definitely more like primary colors, to cover these. When you're selective inking, you want to make sure that the ink doesn't get where you don't want it, but you don't have to stencil the whole entire thing with one color. You can switch it up like I did here. And I did wipe up the colors before I picked up my tape. That way any ink that was on the surface of the stencil got wiped into the area. I just tried to keep it as clean as possible, and I'm just going to reuse my tape the whole way, just to make sure that I didn't have to waste, because I don't like to waste. I don't think anybody does. So yeah, this is just selective inking over that dry embossing that I did with my stencil. Stencils are really cool. I used to just not really understand why I would want stencils in my crafting space, because you can only make exactly what it is, and that is absolutely untrue. You can be very creative with your stencils and create something that the original designer did not even intend. I don't think that spinning or twisting or shifting a stencil is something that they went in designing that stencil to do, but you are very creative, and you can create things, amazing things with simple things, with simple, what am I trying to say? You don't need all of the things to do the things. I don't know if that makes all the sense, but you don't have to have everything to make something wonderful. So here is that close-up of that card. Warm wishes, and I just think that is super cute and fun, and I would happily give it away. These next two techniques I'm going to do together so that you can see them. First of all, I'm going to swipe on this ink pad right over the stencil, and I'm going to kind of push pretty good so that it does get down in between, and it's covering my stencil with ink in the process. But I'm going to get 2 prints, and actually I end up with 3, but I will be creating another video with the other technique. But I got the swiped version, and now I am using a paper towel to wipe the ink down in, and I am getting a couple of. Here are the cards I made using those 2 stencil techniques. So that's my video for today. 10 techniques for using stencils. 10 basic techniques for using stencils. I really hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope maybe you learned something or were inspired. And as I always say, give cards generously. Bye.